Hi class. Today we'll be talking about three very different chapters that actually go very well together. Chapter 3 on listening, Chapter 5 on selecting your topic and purpose, and then Chapter 6 on audience analysis. Then you'll have an audience analysis worksheet based on the information from Chapter 6. So let's get started. All right, so first I'm going to talk about Chapter 3, listening. Now, listening is an important skill to master, and we need to remember that hearing and listening are very different processes. While hearing is a physiological process that involves the vibration of sound waves on the eardrums and the firing of electrochemical impulses to the inner ear of the brain, we're not worried about that. We're worried about listening, a mental process that involves paying close attention to and making sense of what is heard. Most people are poor listeners. In our communication-oriented age, listening is more important than ever, especially in our class. Listening is an important job skill. Effective listening is useful in all aspects of life, including academics, and listening is also an excellent way to improve one's speaking skills. So your text talks about how listening is closely linked to critical thinking. And to understand this, you need to know that there are 4 types of listening. Appreciative listening is the listening for pleasure or enjoyment, such as listening to music, a film, or even an entertaining speech. And empathic listening is listening to provide emotional support for the speaker, such as when a sympathetic friend listens to a friend's troubles. Comprehensive listening focuses on understanding the speaker's message, such as when you're listening to this lecture right now. And finally, critical listening, this is what you'll be doing in our class, involves evaluating a message either to accept it or reject it, a sales pitch, campaign speech, or even a persuasive speech. So Chapter 3 deals with the last 2, comprehensive and critical listening. You use your mind as well as your ears. Because comprehensive and critical listening are closely tied to critical thinking, they are the most important aspects for public speaking. So now let's talk a little bit about poor listening. There are 4 main causes of poor listening. Not concentrating is one cause. Listening too hard can also interfere with effective listening. Jumping to conclusions also prevents listeners from hearing messages accurately. I see this a lot with the persuasive speeches. And focusing on delivery and personal appearance instead of listening to the speaker's message is another cause of poor listening. So there are 7 ways I'll talk about from your text to improve your listening skills. The first step is taking your listening seriously. This is especially important in our class. After that, then you can improve your listening skills by becoming an active listener and resisting distractions around you. A 4th way to improve listening skills is to not be diverted by appearance or delivery. And then a 5th way to improve listening is to suspend judgment until hearing a speaker's full message. Don't judge the speaker just because you think you're already against what they're talking about. You can also develop note-taking skills. I always did this when I was in class. I got to be a really good note taker. That helped me listen. And finally, focus your listening. Focus on listening to the speaker's message. Focus on listening to the main points, the evidence, and the techniques that used by the speaker. All right, so not only am I going to talk about listening, but one of the most important things you'll be doing this week for your first speech and the speeches going forward is selecting your topic and purpose. So I've already heard from some of you that said, I don't know what to introduce myself about. I don't know what to talk about. All right, so what you could do is brainstorm. Throw a bunch of things down on paper and see what sticks. Brainstorming is a great way to help choose your topic. So, topics for speeches outside the classroom are usually determined by the occasion, the audience, the speaker's qualifications, and there are several sources that you can use. Topics for classroom speeches can be things you already know about, what you want to know, what you believe in. You'll be doing an entire speech on that. So think about brainstorming activities. This is what I did. When I thought about my speech about myself, I said, what am I interested in? I'm interested in snowboarding and movies and journalism and baking and parenting, running, music, advertising, football, media. So then I circled the media and I narrowed it down to music, and then narrowed it down to my Woodstock ticket. After that, then you can think about your general purpose. You chose your topic, then the speaker needs to determine the general purpose of the speech. There are two general purposes for classroom speeches, either to inform or persuade. So when you think about it, when you're informing, the speaker acts as a teacher. You're conveying information clearly, accurately, and in an interesting way. Your first 3 speeches in this class will be informative speeches. Then the last one, your general purpose will be to persuade. You act as an advocate. You go beyond just giving information to advocating for a cause. You try to change the attitude of your audience. Then after that, once the general purpose is clear, the next step is narrowing the specific purpose. When I talk about outlining in our Friday lesson, you are going to always be writing down the specific purpose in your outline. It's a single infinitive phrase that precisely says what the speaker wants the audience to know or believe. Like I said, you'll put the purpose of this on your outline. It always starts with to inform my audience about, to persuade my audience to. That's how you will begin the specific purpose within this class. So just some things to think about. Like I said, it should be a full infinitive phrase, not a fragment. This is not an incomplete sentence. These should be statements, not questions. I shouldn't be asking myself what you're going to be telling me about. Definitely avoid figurative language. Keep things clear. Limit to one distinct idea, but don't make this too vague or too general. For example, could have been to inform my audience about the influence music has had on my childhood, my teen years, and today. So I'm not going to go through all these, but here's just some from your text. Here's an ineffective one, avalanches. That's very ineffective. Much better. To inform my audience about the 3 major kinds of avalanches. This is a question. Don't ask a question. Instead, make it a more effective statement. All of these are from your text. Avoid figurative language. Really stinks. That's it, figurative. Instead, you make it more effective by avoiding this figurative language and sticking to the facts. This has too many ideas. You can't do this in one speech. Here's more effective. You're choosing one distinct idea. Avoid being too vague. This is way too vague. I don't know what your specific purpose is. This is more effective. So these are all, I'm going through these a little fast for time. These are all in your text. So when you're thinking about your specific purpose, you want to make sure that it meets the assignment and the time allotted. That's where it comes in on don't have too much. Is it relevant to the audience? Is it too trivial or too technical for the audience? These are other things you need to think about. After that, then you're going to have your central idea. This is your thesis statement. It's one statement that encapsulates the main points to be developed in the body of the speech. So again, the same ideas go for the thesis statement as they went for the specific purpose. Here's one ineffective one. It's too vague. Much better. Don't ask a question. Much more effective. Avoid figurative language, an awesome place. More effective there. I know exactly what the main points are. Scenery, wildlife, cities. Again, this is way too vague. This is a much better thesis statement. All right, so here's an example outline. Again, all of this is in your text, so I'm going to go through this pretty fast, but you can think about how this is the general purpose, specific purpose, the thesis statement. I know exactly what the main points are. All right, so if you have time, here is a speech you can listen to. Think about it, if you can identify the main points of the speech and what evidence was used. Okay, finally, I want to go over a little bit of Chapter 6. So Chapter 6 is analyzing your audience. The audience is the foremost thing that you need to keep in mind during your speech preparation and the presentation. Remember what I said, you're going to have an assignment this week that will go exactly with what I'm talking about during this part of the lecture. Just remember that good speakers are audience-centered. They understand that the primary purpose of public speaking is to gain a desired response from listeners. So they keep 3 questions in mind when preparing their speeches. To whom am I speaking? What do I want my audience to know, believe, or do as a result of my speech? How can I most effectively compose and present my speech to accomplish that aim? It is most important for student speakers to approach their classmates as a real audience. Because the classroom, it seems like an artificial speaking situation. It's easy for students to lose sight of their classmates, but the best speakers will take things seriously. And you're going to notice that in your homework assignment. So just the one thing to think of, good speakers understand the psychology of audiences. A speaker's task is to make the audience want to pay attention to his or her message. And you want to think about egocentrism, the tendency to be concerned with our own values, beliefs, and well-being. It's something that you need to just understand when you're talking to your audience. Your homework assignment is also going to have you analyze the demographic analysis. Here are some demographic analyses that you'll be thinking about. Sorry, the last one's group membership. That one seemed to get cut off. Now, you might not need all of these. You can put, doesn't matter with my topic, but some of these you will want to put on your homework assignment. For example, my introductory speech, I definitely needed to think of age. I talked about music from the 90s. Age would have been an issue. What demographic analyses would be an issue for your speech? Stereotyping is another thing. When analyzing demographic information about the audience, it is essential to avoid stereotyping. Don't assume that all members are alike. Your assignment will also have you analyze the situational analysis. So again, this is part of your homework assignment. Another stage, so the first factor is to consider the size of the audience. How will that affect you? The physical setting of our room, the disposition towards your topic. What is the audience disposition? What is their interest in the topic? These are all things you want to think about. You want to think about the audience's disposition towards you and a disposition towards the occasion. And then finally, attitudes are general evaluations of people, ideas, objects, or events. To evaluate something is to judge it as relatively good or bad, useful or useless, desirable or undesirable. You need to think about thinking about how you might be able to touch upon the attitudes of your audience. This is all about audience analysis. All right, so now that I just briefly went over the 3 chapters, make sure you read the chapters. They'll be, on your quiz and in the class, and you want to think about chapter 6 for your final assignment that will be due, the audience analysis worksheet. Those are based on the information in chapter 6. All right, so go over this information, and then as always, feel free to let me know any questions you may have.